What's up, witches? How we doing? What is up? What is up? How are we? Hello. Why can't I still hear myself over here? How we doing? Do you guys hear an echo? Do you hear me in a million places? I'm trying to be fancy and set us up over here so that you guys can see the vision board at the same time. Hi, Shanice. Hi, Monica. Hi, Takara. How we doing? Okay, Takara says no echo. Monica says yes echo. Let me see. Let's see. There shouldn't be anything, but I can still hear it. Well, I don't think there's such a thing as mute. Why are there balloons? I think that's the best I can do. I don't know. Hopefully, it's not too much of an echo. Nisi doesn't hear an echo either. Okay. Hopefully. They're celebrating our vision board night. Yeah. Well, what's up, witches? Welcome. Welcome. It's great to see all of you here. For those of you that are tuning in on YouTube, happy that you guys can tune in. But if you're wondering why I don't see your comments or I'm not responding to you, that is why. High Tea Live is a Coven exclusive. So if you want to be able to ask questions, participate, all that good stuff, then you want to be in the Coven, and you can join the Coven from the HQ online portal. Yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about that, but I don't know that I'm going to be doing a lot of talking tonight. So if there is an echo, hopefully it won't be too bad, because I don't really have it in me to do a lot of talking today, which is, I got to be honest with you. I don't know how this full moon has been treating folks. For me, it's been very tearful, which is not super out of the ordinary, if I can be honest. Full moons tend to be like a higher emotional time for me in general. But I also just feel like I'm in the middle of some really big shifts and transitions, and that's just never an easy place to be because it's a very unsettled feeling. Nisi says it's been beating your ass. I'm gonna put the comments up. Yeah, so it's just it's not the full moon that's doing it to me. That isn't quite how the astrology works. Really, what it is it just shines a light on some of the things that you need to focus on. And this full moon is a full moon in Aries. Technically, it's just past. We're still just feeling the energy. But Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, and the motto of it is I am. And it's very much a sign that's really comfortable with putting itself first and making bold statements about who it is and what it needs and what it will tolerate in life, and setting boundaries and all of that. It can also be a very fiery, argumentative, fighting kind of energy. And so for me, it's really shining a light on all of the places in my life where I haven't been putting myself first, which I think, as it turns out, is in more places than not. And that's just weighing heavily on me. I'm somebody that really prioritizes and maybe even overemphasizes personal responsibility. That's one of the things that makes me a good boss, a good leader. It's why I was always immediately put into management positions wherever I worked. One of the things about me is I'm very much a the buck stops with me type of person. If I was managing a shift at a restaurant, I was in hospitality for 15 years. And if I was managing a shift and the owner walked in and something wasn't right, under no circumstances was I going to say, oh, that waitress messed that up, or oh, that bar back forgot to put that there. My response is always, my apologies, I did not get someone on that. My apologies, I should have instructed them better. I should have trained that person better. And so the people that I worked for appreciated that, because you want your management to take responsibility and to get things done independently, to fix problems when they're identified and not make excuses about why they happened. And the staff that worked under me appreciated that and liked working with me, because I was never throwing anybody under the bus. So that's a quality that I have taken pride in, I think, for a long time. And that quality has helped me in a lot of places, but it's also hurt me, because what I tend to do when people just simply take advantage of me or mistreat me, don't value me or respect me or appreciate the work that I've done, I tend to take responsibility for that too. If someone walks up to me and slaps me in the face, I'm the type of person to say, shouldn't have been slacking, shouldn't have been not paying attention. I look at how I allowed something to happen to me more than I look at what that person did or at that person. And that leads me to keep people in my life who are harming me for too long, because I will look at myself before I look at them, and I will take responsibility for things that shouldn't be happening to me in the first place. And I just think I'm coming to the realization that that's been happening for a long time, as I have shown up in the role of BronxWitch. that I've been giving of myself just too much to too many people that are okay with taking, and in some cases taking advantage. And looking at what I could be doing better instead of just saying, these people suck and I need to get rid of them. And so I think what I'm dealing with is a combination of kind of like, I guess, like letting myself be the victim for a second, because I never live in that energy. And I think this full moon is allowing me to see the ways in which I have been victimized by individuals and by groups of people, that I've been lied to, manipulated, and like that sucks. It's kind of like having money go missing all the time and then realizing that somebody in your house is stealing from you. It's a really shitty feeling. Like, you would think it would be great to be like, I figured something out. But when you realize what's happening, it just sucks. So there's that part of it. And then there's the part of it that is me realizing that I have to do something about it. Now that I realize it, I can't just let it continue, which means I have to cut off people that I care about, that I have to turn my back to individuals and groups that I genuinely want the best for, but that I can't let drive me to the point where I can no longer be of any good to anybody. And yeah, that sucks. So I'm just kind of sitting in that right now. And I think sometimes, a lot of times, talking about things and talking it out is good. But I don't feel like that's the case right now, because the other side of Aries is volatile. And I feel like, to avoid saying things that I later regret and to avoid causing unnecessary harm, I have to really take my time and let myself fully go through everything and make sure that I am moving forward in a way that really honors me and that I don't look back on and cringe at. So I taught a class today, fire cider making workshop. It was fantastic for the two folks that were there. I love fire cider season. I love making it. And yep. Just going to say something, and I'm not gonna. Now is not the time for talking. If you've never been to a vision board making high tea live, I I don't really feel like teaching right now, if I can be honest. So what I will say is this. I make a vision board every year around Samhain. Samhain is my new year. Energetically, it is the time that feels right for me to look back on the year past and all the things that have changed, the milestones that have been reached, honor any people, relationships, or things that are no longer with me, and get ready for the hibernation of the winter. I start fresh at Imbolc, February 2nd. That's my spring equinox. That's when I feel like I truly come out of hibernation. It's not January 1st. That is smack in the middle of when I need to be resting and resetting. So I like to make my vision board at Samhain to forecast what the next year is going to bring, what I'm going to bring into the next year, what I'm going to co-create with God. And I like to do that before I go into hibernation mode so that my rest can be intentional. And so that when February 2nd comes, I don't have to plan. I already know what the plan is. I just needed to get the rest so that I could have the energy to execute the plan. So this is what I'm going to do today. And the way I approach a vision board is less about goals and more about energy, vibration. What I want the next year to feel like, what I want it to look like, smell like, taste like. What's the vibe of the year? And I think that's the best use of a vision board. It's a vision board. Because goals, it can be frustrating to put up a bunch of goals. The point of the year is not goal reaching, right? There are experiences you want to have. There's a feeling you want to have. So that's what you want to capture in your vision board. And when you're making one, if you decide to make one, I suggest you plan ahead. And I have been thinking about my vision board for the last couple months, making notes on a document I keep on my computer and keeping an eye out for different pictures and things that I want to put on it. And I think it's important for anybody who's here to know that I'm a results-based type of witch. I only do this because it works. If it didn't, I wouldn't bother. But I have found it to be one of the most effective ways to manifest what I want in a year. And before I got on live, I was just looking at this year's vision board and all of the things that have come to be. And so even though I'm not like in the happiest place right now, I'm super grateful and happy about everything that has come to be and everything that I'm going to create next. So rather than talking about where I am right now and living in that space, I just want to focus on the happiness, the elation, the peace, the security, the confidence, the comfort that I am creating for this next year. So I have, turn on the other camera. So I have my board here. Okay. I got a package in the mail and I just used half of the board. So I have my board here. It's not the prettiest board, but whatever. This is not about the board. Move my beverages within reach. Okay, and then I've got my tools, scissors, glue sticks, okay, and tape, which I won't use until the end probably, and various pictures, things that I have printed out, things that I've cut out, magazine cuttings, words and images and things like that. And yeah, so I like to prepare myself ahead of time. I would recommend that you do the same thing, because making a vision board from like at the same time that you go looking for the things is time consuming and annoying, because what are the chances that like the 3 magazines you have in your house are going to have the pictures that you want? Thank you. Hey, appreciate the tech, trying to get the techie right. Yeah, so that would be my only recommendation to you. So I am not going to do much talking, but I encourage you guys to chat amongst yourselves in the chat, especially if you're in the coven. This is where you all can meet each other if meeting other witches is something that you are interested in. I had the honor of being on the Circle Is podcast with Matt Oren and Rachel True. And I haven't had a chance to listen to the episode all the way through. So that's what I'm going to do. And I encourage each of you to go listen to it on Spotify and rate it and interact with it over on Spotify, so that I don't feel bad about playing it right now. But I said we'd give it a listen in. I might skip over some parts maybe, so you have a reason to have to go watch it or listen to it over there. But yeah, I just don't really want to talk. So I just want to play something. And if I recall the recording, this happened a couple of months ago. If I recall the recording right, there were a couple of things that I thought were interesting that I might pause and offer commentary on. I don't know. We'll see how I feel. But anyway, yeah. Is anybody else making their vision board? I did mention that folks should bring their supplies in case they were going to vision board. So let me know if you are doing the same. Oh, and in addition to my pictures and words and various things, I prepared a powder earlier this summer made from 5 different dirts from across the country. I call it my fame and fortune powder. And I'm going to add some of that in here too. Getting your stuff together now. Awesome. All right. Here we go. Thank you guys for being here. Enjoy our time together. I started learning about how important it was for the colonizer, for those that carried out the Atlantic slave trade, not just to take our bodies, but to take our spiritual practices and to convince us that the understandings that we previously held were not just like not with the fashion, but that they were actually evil, because those practices really empowered people.
Is it the Circle Is podcast?
Yeah, because there's no pun.
Sorry, do it again.
Llewellyn Worldwide is a proud sponsor of the Circle Is podcast. Since 1901, Llewellyn has been the oldest and largest independent publisher of books on metaphysics, including witchcraft, tarot, astrology, and the occult. Llewellyn is honored to publish books by the Circle Is podcast co-host Matt Oren, including Psychic Witch, a metaphysical guide to meditation, magic, and manifestation; Mastering Magic, a course in spellcasting for the Psychic Witch; and The Psychic Art of Tarot, opening your inner eye for more insightful readings, with a foreword by Rachel True. For more information on Llewellyn books, decks, and tools, visit llewellyn.com. LLEWELLYN.com.
Today we're excited to have Ali Kravitz, aka BronxWitch, who is a tarot reader, a Reiki master, a spiritual entrepreneur, and she is the owner of BronxWitch HQ, which I assume means headquarters. And she's got a bookstore and a work share space for witches located in the Bronx, New York. Ali is the host of Better Witch podcast, and she's the curator of HQ online portal, which she and other experienced witches teach virtual classes on witchcraft, spirituality, and more. Ali shares glimpses into her life as a working witch on her YouTube channel, Beyond Bronx Witch. Ali has been on her own magical journey for over 2.5 decades, and her passion and purpose is to help. She calls them baby witchlings. I'm going to call them witchlings, because you got to learn to walk before you ride your broomstick. She teaches them how to become better little witches, and you can find out about her. We'll have all her Instagram and socials listed. But Ali, before we even get started, the first thing I want to ask is, listen, Ali is Black like me, and I want to know how you eschewed or how you deal with Christianity and being a witch. Now, maybe Ali has no background in this, but I know a lot of my Black brothers and sisters were raised in the church. So, yeah. Ali, what's your backstory?
Yeah, well, first of all, shout out to you for putting the right accent on the Bronx. So everybody knows what's up, exactly. And it's so funny, actually, that you would start with that question, because just as I was bringing in the sign, I'm here in my shop, BronxWitch HQ, which does stand for headquarters. I was bringing in our outdoor sign, and some woman that I imagine lives in the building or perhaps is visiting the building adjacent to us, felt the need to, I guess she saw my sign, call out that Jesus loves me, and something else that I didn't quite catch as I was kind of, moving on with my day, because I didn't recall asking her.
That's how my intuition works, Ali. I'm like, let me ask about the thing that...
Yeah.
But also, I know our listeners are curious about this too, because some of them, I'm always saying, tarot isn't out of alignment with Christ consciousness. It's not my bad, per se, the church, but it's not out of alignment with that. So I'm sorry that happened to you today, but I loved how you handled it, because if we're firm in our faith, whether that is pure Christianity or witchcraft, nothing anyone can say can throw us off our game, right?
Right. Well, because for me, it's, I think a lot of people reiterate things that they hear other people say because it feels good or it gives them some sense of comfort, or like they know what's going on in the world. I'm a really results-driven person, so I do what works. So some random stranger and their opinions isn't going to be enough to turn me off from what's working in my life.
Well, you're kind of like an air or an earth sign. I have no idea what you mean.
I'm a fire sign, but I've got a lot of Libra placements, and I'm really all about that. I'm a happy, healthy, whole person. And that's because of the craft and my journey in the craft. And so the idea...
Sorry to interrupt, but did you grow up in the church?
I did. I absolutely did. Deeply in the church, yeah. My family comes from Charleston, South Carolina. And here in New York, we were members of the Mount Zion AME Church on 116th and Madison.
I've been to AME Zion churches.
Yes. So you know the experience, and I grew up in the choir in the Young People's Division. My mom was on the Floral Club. My aunt was missionary. So we were very much, a church family. And for the first years of my life, I didn't really have friends or do activities outside of school that wasn't church related. So it was really sort of out of the ordinary at the age of 12 to start asking questions about the Bible and about the things that we were doing in church that to me didn't line up with what I was reading or make a lot of sense. And my mom did that thing where she would refer me to my Sunday school teachers because she didn't really have good answers, because spoiler, there weren't any. And then they would just get annoyed because they also had no answers. And I realized that it was a lot of, we do this because there wasn't a lot of understanding of why certain things were done. And there wasn't a lot of ability to line it up with the Bible or the teachings of Christ. And so I said, okay, well, clearly I have to go figure this out for myself. And gratefully, I was born at a time where around 12, 13, the internet was coming into be. And there were amazing movies like The Craft, and there were great shows like Charmed that were able to open my eyes to something different. And that's when I discovered Wicca. And I said, oh, that's what I believe. That makes sense.
First of all, can I see, now you're going to have me in my accent.
All day.
First of all, can I talk about this, that we kind of giggle. We're like, we kind of do help bring witches into pop culture. We're not taking credit for anything other than that,
No, big time. I think really what The Craft did, what Charmed did, what these different things in pop culture did was it painted witches in a different light. It wasn't necessarily that it was like you should all become one or some type of statement about spirituality or anything like that. It's just if you grew up in a household like mine where the word witch was only associated with demons and devils and evil things, and then you saw
the satanic panic was
exactly
for a little kid, and then you became mature at an age where that had sort of died down.
Right. And there were these examples of badass young women, like the Charmed girls were they were everything. These are these wonderful young women. They live on their own. They're independent. And not only are they not bad, they fight the bad guys. Maybe there's a different side to what a witch could be.
So believe it or not, everyone knows I love the crap out of The Craft, right? Mm-hmm. But people get surprised. I hate Charmed. I could never get into Charmed.
Allie, I got in a Twitter fight with Holly Marie Combs.
Did you really? Listen, first of all, I don't know if I will allow such blasphemy on Beyonce's internet, Matt. Come on now. Really? Well, it's fine. I could understand that. I don't know if the show was the best show ever. I think really just what it did. Yeah, it was just the concept that witches could be something other than the decrepit old lady in the woods that eats the children, and it was just something else to think about.
There's a lot of books that talk about that, and I think I mentioned in my first book that it was hags with warts on their nose trying to suck the life out of young people. The Disney-fied version that had come up. So I do love now as a time period, actually. I don't love all of now and what's going on in the witch community, but I do love that it's made people like you with a Southern family. Anyway, I'm only harping on the religious thing because I know that there are listeners out there who are struggling with the same thing.
I want to back up a little bit. What was your Twitter feud? What's the tea on that?
Oh, yeah. Can you?
Oh, it's not even magical or mystical. I'm not even on X or Twitter anymore, but I was feeling feisty. And she was, what happened, Allie? Holly Marie Combs, who I'm sure is a lovely human, by the way, but she was sitting on the new Charmed.
Oh.
Which was Brujas. And I was like, I was like, hey, let's just let the Brujas click, click, click have their moment, right? Because when and I even said this, you'll never hear me talking shit about the craft too. Didn't involve me, so I don't give a fuck, right? So I just, my Holly was like, click, click, clack, click, clack, this isn't what that writer wanted. And then I wrote, why did you, really? Because why did you steal our song and on the font?
Yeah.
The original idea, and that might have been very true, by the way, but it did borrow everything.
Yeah. Heavily inspired.
He's fighting me on that, and I'm like,
I mean, how soon is now? Just pick another song.
Pick another song. They were sisters. I said yes, so they could cut out the black one.
Yeah. Oh.
True.
I go over well with her, but I just lastly on that, the producer of Charmed, the new one, was like, thank you. I was like, yeah, because it's a different story, and you're having a tantrum over there because you're not involved in it. As opposed to, like I said, you don't see one MF tweet about whatever that was, Craft 12. You don't see a tweet from me on that.
Yeah,
because it's their moment, like you said.
That's right. Wasn't my moment.
We had our craft, we had our charm.
Matt laughs at me when I say this, but you get that your generation gets the craft it deserves. How about that?
It does for all of those things, and it really was like for the generation. It was for that time. I wouldn't necessarily expect someone in 18 years old, 21, 25 years old to really connect with those moments in pop culture the way that we do.
They were hard.
They were for us.
But, and I'm not doing this to toot my own horn. I just want to know, was it helpful? Because I had to fight so fucking hard to get in that movie. It was all Anglo to begin. Blah, blah, blah. Now, was it helpful for you to see a reflection, even though I'm different, we're all different, but a reflection of Blackness in that movie?
Yeah, no, hugely. It was hugely impactful. And I think, even if there wasn't a person of color character, the way that the craft was handled in the movie, I think by Hollywood standards, really it sits well with me. I'm okay with it. Obviously, right? There's CGI and there's a lot of, Hollywoodification of it, but just the way that the craft was approached, it rings true to my understanding of the practice, that you can have things get carried away. You can open yourself to things that you maybe can't understand. And there is also a yin and a yang, a light and a dark for everything that we do. And I think that was
consultant. We have
right. I'm aware of that.
Pat Devin was her name, but also I just want to say thank you to Matt and you for understanding. It's a Hollywood movie. When people are like, I don't think it.
It's not a documentary. It's a movie, so it's gonna be fantastical to some extent, right? But it got a lot of the principles really right. And I mean, what happened? I forget the main character's name actually, because no, not Nancy. Sarah, yes, excuse me. So it's Nancy and Rochelle for me. Like those are the ones, but I'm like, technically that's not the main character of the storyline. But Sarah, what happens with Sarah with the boy casting a love spell and having that turn really well? I talk about that as an example with my students who are interested in love magic all the time, to articulate how a love spell could control someone's behaviors, but not their genuine feelings to you or how much they care about your well-being. And I think that is very well explained in the movie. So even if there wasn't a person of color character, I think it would have impacted me as a witch. But of course, as a Black young girl, it was hugely impactful from the position of representation, because as you point out, as a Black person in America, especially at that time, Christianity was the only name in the game, as far at least in the circles and worlds that I was allowed to be exposed to. So the idea that a young Black woman could be doing things with her life that did not involve spending every waking moment in church was really motivating and inspiring for me about what my life might look like when I got to high school, I got to college, and I had a little bit more freedom to live my life. And the fact that Rochelle handled
racism with her craft, that she was able to use it to protect herself against that, was very empowering. It's like, okay, I'm going to experience this in my life, potentially some form of discrimination, racism, oppression. My craft could help me with that. It could help me fight that. And now that's what I'm doing.
I appreciate that because, and then we're never going to talk about the Craft 12 again, but one of the things I didn't love was I avoided a lot of the information on it, but I stumbled on an interview with the black girl in the new craft, and she was like, I'm just glad I wasn't saddled with that storyline. And I was like, you better take my name out your mouth, little girl. And my second thing to her would be, at least I have a storyline. So,
you are on fire this evening.
You know what? Yes. It annoyed me, and I'm Scorpio, and sometimes I raise my tail. I didn't do it during when that was out because I wasn't trying to crap on her. But now that it's a while later, I'm like, that's very disrespectful of the people who've come before you, not just in acting, but in life. The people who have paved the way, and I know gay men deal with the same thing. There are men my age who are gay who led the way, and now the kids are shitting on them. And they don't understand the path they walk to get y'all to where you are. So I wish that actress had understood what being a black actress in the 90s was like. I'm glad she doesn't have to deal with that stuff, though. I really am, and I'm glad that our generations now are dealing with a slightly different view, and we see the racism in our politics so clearly, but it's being spoken about now as opposed to whispered. But let's pivot to what you talked about that you said with your students when we're talking about love spells and things like that. It's a little bit of manipulation magic, no?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, all magic is the manipulation of energy. So it's all manipulation in that regard. You're taking sort of a bubble of frequency, and you're shifting it in a way that benefits you, hopefully, I guess, or in your favor. I think what people maybe don't think, I approach the craft in what I call a very scientific way, because to me, magic is just science on the energetic and spiritual levels, and therefore it's harder to codify and really, formalize or explain to folks. But what you're doing when you're casting is you're shifting energy in a certain direction. And because the universe is a place of continual balance and homeostasis, it then just has to shift back from that. So yes, you're manipulating something, but that then comes back in some way. So
times two. No, I'm kidding.
Well, I don't. Yeah, I'm like, that doesn't really stand up scientifically, but I get it. I get it though. It's nice to have something that like tries to keep you on like just being nice to people. But it all moves back around, and so as much as you are manipulating the things around you and perhaps the people around you, you're also manipulating yourself. And so to that extent, it's not quite as one-sided or as sinister as that would sound. When you say manipulation, it sounds like a harsh or mean thing to do to someone, but everything that we do is manipulative. We're constantly manipulating our environment, ourselves, and the people around us.
You're on your line with your magic, because I'm like, listen, I'm of the mind like, honey jars, but I'm not a witch like you guys. You all are, although I suppose I'm witchy, right? Mm-hmm. So I will kitchen witch shit in a minute, and I'll put someone's name in a honey jar spell. That doesn't feel that manipulative to me. But when I see people who are doing, I'm gonna make them love me, I feel like that it feels uncomfortable.
Yeah, I would say that not to make you feel uncomfortable about more things, but that honey jar is just as manipulative as the love spell. It's
that's why you
right. For me, where I draw the line, and this is personal, and this is because Wicca is my religion of choice, and it's where I got started, and also because of a firm belief that as a witch, I'm creating my reality, and the world that I live in currently is a not so nice one, but the world I want to live in is a very nice one. And if I'm throwing out things that are not so nice, then how is it possible that I'm going to create that nice world that I'd like to be in? So I do my best to avoid baneful magic. or magic that's designed to specifically harm someone. And
someone says, I want to do a curse on someone. What do you say?
I'm not the witch for you. First of all, I don't really do a lot of custom spell work. It'd be too expensive for most. But besides that, that I wouldn't be the witch for you.
I feel you on the other one, Allie. People always hitting me up for readings, and I'm like, I'm too expensive.
Sorry, and I have been led by my guides to do things, but when in all of the instances in which I've done spell work on someone's behalf, it has been because they were in danger, in real physical danger. They've always been women or femme presenting people, and they have always been people of color, and they have always been in actual physical danger. And I think that's because of the nature of the spirits that walk with me and the particular guides that I carry, and their ferocious protection over women and wanting to keep them safe. And so I have been instructed by them to do that for a handful of people, friends and clients, students, and things like that. But it's not something I make myself available to. But even if I did, if someone was like, hey, I'd like you to curse this person, no, thank you. But I'm happy to teach you how the craft works and also introduce you to concepts that you might want to consider before you do this for yourself. Louisa Tish is an author and an Oshun priestess. She's one of the elders in our community. And she has an incredible book called Jambalaya. It's about 40 years old now. It's considered like one of the preeminent books on hoodoo. And in the back, towards the end of the book, she writes about the hex mistress, which is somebody who throws out curses and hexes so much that they start to see them everywhere. And they start to become convinced that every little thing that happens to them is the result of someone doing magic against them. And so they start to live in this place of incredible paranoia and fear. And all they see is the negative in everybody. And she just warns us against becoming hex mistresses by not jumping to cast those types of
like your great grandma says, seek and you shall find, right?
Like right. If you're looking for it, you're going to find it.
Matt, what's your thought on those kind of spells?
I also believe that like the people who get super curse happy draw people cursing to them.
Right.
And this is where I so I'm not against cursing. I just see it as like owning a gun, right? Mm-hmm. Like it needs to be taken as a serious responsibility and it needs to be a serious threat. And usually like if I curse, it's political. It is something that is like beyond like we need to throw energy at this to get this person to go away because they're going to harm people. But I don't believe that because even then there's a coin to pay, right? Because I don't think that you can separate yourself from the magic that you cast. And a lot of times when people want to curse, it's over interpersonal stuff, and usually because their ego was hurt in one way or another. And there are so many other solutions magically and mundanely that could not only remedy the situation, but make it even better instead of, just perpetuating that cycle of hurting other people.
It's low vibe energy.
Yeah.
And then like Matt was saying, it's attracting other low vibe energies, right?
But I do believe in political magic. I do believe in activist magic. And I do believe sometimes that makes, very dangerous people trying to hurt some of our most marginalized, most vulnerable people in society as these laws are growing and these systems are growing to hurt them more. Sometimes we need to give them a little magical push to go away.
This is making me want to ask Allie this question. Allie, what is wrong with the minds and souls of the 30% of white Christian evangelical nationalists? What is the malady? No, I'm asking.
Her face right now.
You can cut this out if you don't want it in, but I'm curious because it's starting to feel, it's an energy that they...
This is a podcast recording, so you guys have no idea the face I made when Rachel asked me this question, because how in the world am I supposed to know what is wrong with white nationalists? I don't know what their problem is. I literally was like, what? That's your question? I just solved life right now on this podcast. Um, but I think I handled the question pretty well. You guys, let me know. Hold on, where'd it go?
That they have, and it feels like a malady to me, a malady of something. To believe that, especially when they say this is a white Christian nationalist country, while ignoring the fact that it was built on the back of free slave labor. How did
On indigenous land.
or on indigenous land? And they leave that out. They leave most of the equation out and just say it's our birthright. And I'm asking because years and years ago, I was working with an actor who said to me, he was a black actor, who said to me, wow, black people must have really done something wrong to have this heavy karma. And it was like, no, it's white people who have heavy karma. You know, that was a little bit of victim blaming. I felt not to say we're victims at all. But, and if that's too weird a question, that's fine. But you seem very in touch with energy, and I'm just curious. What your thoughts are on that?
Well, I don't know that I am close enough to anyone who harbors those types of views to give like a great diagnosis, but from sort of an outside perspective looking in, what I see, what I feel, what I hear is fear and inadequacy. When you are not confident that you have an inherent power and ability to create the life that you want for yourself, then taking it from others is one of the only options. And then once you've done that, the ferocious desire to hold on to what you've stolen has to be immense, because you know that you can't build something like that for yourself. So you have to keep what you've taken. And I think that there are some folks in this country that are really afraid of the idea of losing what was stolen. And they're responding.
That's a lovely, lovely, gracious answer, Allie.
I remember.
How do you guys think I answered
watching
that?
evangelicals when I was little, like white evangelicals, like televangelists, and they would be talking, and so this was like early.
And that's not just me being politically correct or trying to have a nice answer either. That's how I legitimately feel. That the violent racism that we see, particularly white supremacy, really just comes from fear of losing something that they know they could never create for themselves. And the laws have changed, and they couldn't necessarily just enslave a bunch of people or steal it again. So they would potentially have to build it for themselves. And when you know you're not capable of that, you're going to really freak out at the idea of what you've stolen being taken away. So that is my legitimate belief for why we see such intense white supremacist violence right now.
Early 90s, and they'd be talking about how like in 20 years white people were going to be a minority, and like we need to fix this, we need to solve this. And so it definitely is based in fear, but it's also like an admission of like, that sounds like you think being a minority isn't too fun, huh?
Right. I think there is definitely a huge fear amongst other groups of people probably carry it too, but definitely just for looking at this little sort of like sliver of life of racist white Americans that are really, really genuinely afraid that if they were to lose the power that they have, that they would be treated the way that they have treated others.
I agree with that assessment. That's what I've always thought. Is you know how shitty you treat everyone. You don't want to be treated that way. And I wanted to ask, your guys' opinion on this, because they're so ardently against witches and magic and things like that, even though you look through their book and it's full of witches and magic and soothsayers and prophets. And why is it the Southern Baptist can handle snakes and speak in tongues and tell you his wife had a vision, but that's cool. But you say you're Wiccan, and a woman's got to tell you Jesus loves you.
Yeah. That I think is that part in particular is really motivated, I think, by just a lack of education. And it's I don't want to necessarily make it as simple as like, oh, this group of people is stupid, but it tracks simply because, like, if you look at statistically, where we are in the country and in the world, I think we're like 35th in the world in literacy. The United States of America. Right, like
sixth grade level, and we keep telling everyone we're the best, and all the evangelicals, white nationalists, our culture, our way of life. You know what our culture is? They're guns. That's our culture. That is what American culture has been reduced to.
Right. There's not a lot of education, and that part comes to me from that, because you only have to spend a little bit of time, reading books with like hardcovers and the pictures, like books, and learning about history to realize the similarities in the practices, to see how people traveling over distances and being separated from their original cultures, recreating things, reclaiming things, being conquered by other people and colonized by other people.
This is why they want to take away money from public schools.
Yes.
This is all the reasons why, because you learn about this stuff like Allie did at 12 and went, hey, wait a second, why? I have questions I want, and I can't find the answers here. They want to stop that.
Right. Yeah, I was like, I don't understand how the practices of my ancestors in Africa was demonic, or honoring them is evil. That doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. Do you think we're demons? Do you think that we're evil? I don't get that. And then I started learning about how important it was for the colonizer, for those that carried out the Atlantic slave trade, not just to take our bodies, but to take our spiritual practices, and to convince us that the understandings that we previously held were not just like not with the fashion, but that they were actually evil, because those practices really empowered people. And so what has been done to the Black Americans' mind about themselves and who they are, and how much of our power has been hidden from us, really is the lingering impact and the real core of the damage done by slavery. And if you learn that, then you start to understand why it is that Black people in the South and in the church will swear up and down that what you're doing is evil. It is because they were told to believe that, and they were forced to believe that. And after a while, you start to enjoy your poison.
Well, Allie, also, and Matt, the Bible, we all know, and it's mostly in the Old Testament, right? But it fully is like, slavery. Here's how you need to treat your slaves. Mm-hmm. Here's how, if they're this religion, you can treat them a little better. But if they're Jewish, it's this way. But if they're not Jews, you can beat them as long as they don't die on the third day. If they don't die on the third day, you're cool. So I do come from that thing. And I, Gen X and older than these guys, but it was fear. You need to fear God. Fear. Right. That's not the AME Zion message, but I'm saying that was the overall message of it all. Yeah. And I saw it as the servitude. This is how we kept our slaves in line. And, Allie, back when I was cast in the craft, a lot of Black actresses said, I wouldn't have done that movie because, right. And you haven't heard me say this, but I'm always like, don't worry, it wasn't your part.
Right, exactly.
It's not really your concern, but it's that was a long time ago. views have changed since now? Are you seeing more and more Black and brown people become Wiccans in your experience?
And not just become Wiccans, but just reclaiming ancestral practices that obviously with a really drew heavily from. I think that's really beautiful. I think one of the things that has surprised me a little bit, but very much encouraged me, is a few months ago. I'm kind of on an Instagram break right now on my personal page, but a few months ago, I remixed some clips that I had seen of Black folks with podcasts or platforms, talking about this ancestor altar, this is demonic, this is evil, and these are demons, and et cetera, et cetera. And typically, I feel like maybe even just 10 years ago, you would have seen a ton of comments under those posts from Black people. Yes, amen, absolutely. Oh my goodness, they're opening up themselves to this and that, and I rebuke this and that. And on both of the posts that I reposted, the comments had to be turned off by those original posters because it was filled with people of color saying, this is a shame that you think your ancestors are demonic. This is ridiculous. This is the colonizer's words. This is the slave master's words. Don't you understand your history? Don't you know where we come from? Yeah. And so these are, people that don't necessarily identify as witches, are not necessarily practicing the craft, and haven't necessarily adopted a religion or even left Christianity, but that just have woken up to history and have said, wait a minute, I get it. You want to go to church. I get it. Christ is an amazing being to be connected with, a representation of unconditional love. But cut it out with this whole ancestor veneration is worshiping of the devil. This was something that was forced down our throats to control us and disconnect us from our people, to make it easier to rip children away from their mothers and split up families and sell people off to, oceans away. You could not do that and keep those people under control if they continue to believe that they are powerful, that their ancestors are to be loved and honored, and that they should respect themselves and demand respect for themselves. It wasn't going to work. So I'm really encouraged by how many people of color, whether they leave the church or not, are saying, wait a minute, there's some stuff that we have been told, that we've just been blindly repeating, that ultimately does not serve us as a people, and that was made up, and that isn't necessarily backed up by the Bible. Or if it is, we have to ask ourselves why, and do we want to be aligned with this book?
Also, I was always so curious when hardcore Christians were like, don't open that Ouija board or tarot deck because the demons. And I'm like, how weird is your faith or religion that a demon could jump in you that easily? Ain't no demon jumping in me that easily. Matt, do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I recently started a blog on Substack, and the first post I wrote was on Ouija boards and spirit boards. And, I think it's so funny, this idea that, demons can come through so easily. I don't practice, Goetia, demon work isn't my go-to bag, but, if Ouija boards did that, I know so many occultists that work with demons that would be, just working with Ouija boards instead. If they were that easy to summon with a board.
That's a good point.
Right. We would just everyone would just be like, oh, you know what? Let me just take over the world with this.
Well, yeah, I got a Ouija board.
Right. Yeah, I think that the Ouija board in particular is really one of those things that, Hollywood's gotten a hold of and has really created a lot of stink around that in reality isn't really any different than any other divination tool. And you can have a conversation with an energy being with a bag of rice, but the Ouija board, a bag of rice wouldn't be as cool, in a movie.
It's literally the same principles as a pendulum.
I was just talking about this in my spirit guide class because someone asked the question, did I think that a Ouija board was a better tool than, let's say, a pendulum for speaking to their spirit guides? And my answer was no. Effectively, it's the same thing. The analogy I use is you speak English, energy speaks Italian. Neither one of you speaks the other language fluently, but you realize that both of you speak a little bit of Spanish. And so if you both speak a little bit of Spanish, you can talk to each other. And the Spanish is the tool. And the tarot cards or the Ouija board or the pendulum is the tool. That you can speak enough a little bit and spirit can manipulate enough a little bit that you can have a conversation, even though the two of you don't actually speak the same language fluently.
My stepmother uses playing cards instead of tarot cards. She's not against tarot cards, by the way. She's into it. But she can also, she's like, I just use playing cards. And she's getting the message and the information. So wait, okay, Allie, all right, let's talk about little baby witchlings.
Yes.
And let's pretend I'm a little baby witch. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know why I'm an old Jewish man when I'm trying to in this analogy. But in Baby Witch, how do I get started? It's a little easier than when I was a Baby Witch age because I had to go to a real bookstore. There was the internet, but not like now. I had to go, and you know, Teresa Reed, when she was on, we were talking about, I kind of like the ritual of that, though. It made it all seem more weighted and important. And I'm not saying you have to have that, but since there isn't that now, let's talk about your advice for newborn witches who are like, I'm a witch. Also, I need you to dispel for some of them, Allie. A lot of them think all their power comes from their vagina. And I'm not having that, whether it's your penis or I'm not having it because most people have a penis or a vagina. That can't just be the seat of your power. Anyway, please.
Yeah. Right. Well, you know, power to the genitalia. You know,
power to the genitalia.
Fantastic things for us. But well, first of all, I might borrow that terminology, newborn witches. I like that a lot. The idea of like all of us being like swaddled, but with our little hat on, I think is super cute. But well, you know, shameless plug. You could start with taking my class, 10 Steps to Becoming a Better Witch. It's all about baby witch stuff and how to get past that. But I think if I could kind of sum up what I go over in that class and what those 10 steps are all about, it is about understanding that the craft and being a practitioner of the craft is not something that you do, it's something that you are. And we all start off in, unless we grow up in a household where we have like practicing parents or we come from a culture that's really deeply steeped in the practices, you start off with the doing. And that's, for me, how I define someone that is a baby witch, someone that is doing the thing. So I have a free afternoon. I'm going to go to the witchy shop and buy a bunch of crystals and candles that I don't really know what to do with or understand how to work with, and hope that, you know, just by buying it, something incredible is going to happen in my life. Or if I just light this candle, it's going to do something for me.
Price tags off your candles, people. I'm not a Wiccan, but here's my little bit of advice. Honor your candle by taking the goddamn price tag off it before you do your ritual. Go ahead, Allie.
That's interesting. Yeah. But yeah, like the realizing that being a witch is a worldview. It's a way of looking at yourself and how you relate to the rest of the world and the rest of the cosmos. And so it's a way of being, and it's a way of navigating through life. And when you are just doing the things, that is, I think, what I feel when people come into the shop. They a lot of times still, I'm just a baby witch, I'm dabbling and I'm just learning. And that's because, you know, they have a free afternoon, and so now they're doing something witchy. If that's something that's like frustrating or that's like feels not enough, where you're trying to get is at a place where being a witch is something that you're doing, you're just existing in. It's a state of being. So I am witching right now. And not just because I'm, you know, chatting on a witchy podcast with 2 other witches, but the way that I am connecting with myself, the real me, not my body and my mind and the chemicals and the muscle and sinew, but the real me that will exist long beyond my body does and has always been here. And the way I'm connecting with the energy that is you all and the space around me and creating the reality of this moment, and all of that is a part of my craft. And it's not possible for me to turn it off or turn it back on. It's just a state of being that I'm in. And some witches really want to get there. And I think the way to get there first is to realize that that's the distinction. And so if you are going to go through your life by just doing witchy things, picking it up and putting it down and like tuning into YouTube videos when you're bored and using witches that you admire as like entertainment instead of education, reading books like Psychic Witch but not doing the exercises, right? Buying it so you have it on your bookshelf but not doing the exercises, getting your incredible tarot deck and not reading the guidebook and seeing how these archetypes actually showed up in your life. Or sitting down with that deck to do readings on a regular basis and building a relationship with it, you're going to always be in that baby witch stage because you're always just going to be doing witchy things.
It's true for learning the cards. People just practice. Go ahead, Matt.
I love that you said that because one of the things I love about you, Allie, because I'm always because like we have a flood of people online, like trying to teach, trying to sell, when it comes to witchcraft or anything esoteric. And I'm always looking at like who are the grifters and who are the hustlers. And I feel like you're a hustler, and I respect that, which is different in my vocabulary.
You're a hustler.
I can't help it. I'm from the Bronx. You don't stick around, and I'm 38 years old. I could live anywhere. You don't choose to live here.
12. You
But
look
what I'm
like
saying
you're
is-
12 years old.
But what I'm saying is there's a distinction, and sometimes it's hard for people to discern.
So I think that Matt cut this particular part of the conversation out when he was editing, which is totally fine. It was just like a very small moment, but I remembered it distinctly, like when we were talking, that one of those things where like multiple people are talking, so you don't get a chance to like say your full response. But after he mentioned that I'm a hustler, which 100% I am, he said something about how he respected the fact that I went about my work, and it wasn't about being rich or famous. We say that phrase all the time, rich and famous. And he was like, I love that for you. It's not about being rich or famous. And we kept talking, the conversation just kind of kept going. And when he said that, I remember thinking to myself that like, I kind of wanted to clarify that, because I understood exactly what he was saying and I understood exactly what he meant, but I wanted to make it clear because I've done quite a bit of shadow work around this. And so I'm at a place where I can say this out loud. What I do is not for the purpose of being rich or famous, but I absolutely want to be rich and famous. Not everybody wants those things. And a lot of people, I think, want those things but don't want to say it because it doesn't sound good. But when you're visualizing anything, I have learned you have to be absolutely honest about what it is that you're trying to create and what you're trying to visualize. And if you feel shame or embarrassment about what you are going for, you're not going to vibrate on the frequency of that thing. So I can't be ashamed to say that I want to be famous. I can't be ashamed to say that I want to be rich, because I have to live in the energy of fame and fortune in order to call that into my life. I was listening to Pam Gregory today, and I really like the way that she describes it. Pam Gregory is an astrologer that I like to watch her forecasts of. And she was talking about every radio station is playing right now. Every radio station is playing right now. They are all existing at the same time. Which station are you going to tune yourself into? And it's not realistic to think that you are going to pick up a signal from a radio station that you're not tuning yourself into. So for me, I feel like I want to make it clear so that there's no confusion about it in my radio signal, so that I'm tuned in exactly to what it is that I want. And there's a lot of things that I want. I want a lot of things. I want a lot of changes in the world. I want a lot of changes in my own life. So I want a lot. And one of the things that I want is fame and fortune. And I accept that about myself so that I can dial in to that frequency. And prayerfully, I treat everyone with fairness and respect. I operate myself and my business with integrity and authenticity. And I communicate with honesty and transparency so that even as I gain fame and fortune, people always understand that nothing that I do is for that. It's just that that's what I want in return for the hard work that I'm doing to make a change in the world. That's the payment that I want. That's the reciprocity exchange that I want from the universe. You want me to come down here and make a difference in people's lives and in the world in whatever way I'm supposed to do that. What I want in exchange is a life of fame and fortune in this lifetime. That's my pay. That's my exchange. So yeah, as I get paid out for the work that I do, know that it's not for that I do it, but it's the pay that I've asked for. And I think what we do and why there's so much like shame around fame and fortune is that when people become famous or they become wealthy, we don't want to believe that it's possible for us as exchange for good works. We want to assume that the only way to be famous and to have fortune is by being a grimy person, being dishonest, being selfish, caring only about yourself and things like that. Because if we admit that fame and fortune could be the payment for hard work for humanity, then that would mean that if we don't have that, then we might just not be working hard enough, or we might not be doing enough good for people. And then that puts the responsibility for our lack of fame and fortune in our own laps. And accepting responsibility for our own lives is probably one of the hardest things for any of us to do. So it's easier to just say, well, they're famous because they sold their souls to the devil or they made a pact with the Illuminati, instead of saying, no, they just worked really hard and they're really talented and they worked harder than I did and they're more talented than I am. It's a hard pill to swallow, I think. So anyway, he didn't include that in the episode, but it was an interesting moment. And I felt like I wanted it to be clear that fame and fortune is absolutely what I want in this lifetime. Were my thoughts.
Burn the two.
Yes.
You know, but there's
And Matt, don't you find some people are actually drawn to the flim flam?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because I think a lot of people want what I refer to as fast food spirituality, and they want that in witchcraft. And I think that's very along the lines of what Ali's saying, the distinction between that kind of fast food, like, oh, I'll just have it because I've got the free time and I'm bored, versus like, this is something you become. This is like a lot of what you said, I absolutely jive with. In my second book, I talk about like one of the ways I define witchcraft is the art of relationship. And it's about how you relate to everything in the universe, seen and unseen. But what I appreciate about Ali is I can tell that there's a sincerity to your practice and your passion. And it's not just about like, I want to be famous and I want to make money and, because you see that a lot, whether
I guess he didn't cut it out.
Say that
That part.
You see that a lot. But like, Just to kind of back it up a little bit, because I also want to know.
And I wanted to
we were talking
interrupt
about,
him
like,
and be like, no, I
representation in the
want to
craft
be
and
rich and I
Rochelle
want to be
being
famous.
Black
But yes, also
character,
I am sincere.
in the craft. It made me think of, especially because we were talking about also like Charmed using the theme song and things like that. During that kind of zeitgeist that the craft started, which included Hot Topic too. Like, I think the craft single-handedly.
Oh, yeah.
Hot Topic.
Oh my God. Yeah, I changed how we were all dressing.
Look at my pictures on those shirts, and I make no money from the Hot Topic.
Oh.
I'm not worried.
Not a dime.
But so like so I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this, but like Silver Ravenwolf once told me, because she has Teen Witch, and the cover of Teen Witch is very much inspired by the craft. You know, it's got these teenagers and stuff. And Llewellyn back then, which like no one at Llewellyn is the Llewellyn team that was around then. Like the whole company has changed. But Silver had to fight to actually get diverse people on the cover, because they wanted to put all white girls.
But this is what people don't understand. Thank you for bringing it up within my lifetime. And there are so many people online, Matt, who say to me, well, the energy of you've never experienced racism. Bitch, are you motherfucking kidding me?
Yeah.
The reason that my career probably wasn't even better than it was, because I wasn't even allowed to read for most projects. And the ones you've seen me in, I fought to get in because racism.
Right. And so like she really had to fight, and she had to be like, no, I want a Black girl on there, I want an Asian girl on there, you know, I want a boy on there.
I want a boy. Yeah.
It was a big deal.
Diversity
Yes.
in the 90s was my Italian friend not getting many odds. She's Italian and Jewish, and she was considered ethnic.
Yeah.
Right.
Too ethnic.
Well,
Yeah.
white
No. Well,
girl-
shout out.
The whitest white girl ever, but considered ethnic. So thank goodness times have changed. Thank goodness we're coming up. Thank goodness millennials had it just a hair easier, still experienced a lot of the same stuff. I think it's interesting with Gen Z. My nephews are Gen Y or Z, and they're like, there is no racism. And I'm like, you little shits. But in a certain way, that's progress, right? Because they haven't experienced it. But I also know as a grown-up, it'll find them, or it won't. Hopefully it won't, but they'll have to reflect on that themselves. I'm not here to tell them, like, don't like this.
I see sympathies with that, with like a lot of my fellow gay men talk about that with the younger generations and being queer, you know, like I can't imagine being a child and being openly gay, you know, like I just like, we use like the F slur, like not we, but like as a culture, like that was just, we called people the F slur all the time.
We had to have like campaigns to like stop doing
we had to
that.
have
I remember the TV
commercials.
Yeah, like that's not cool. Don't say that. Yeah, no. Well, first of all, shout out to Silver Ravenwolf for so many amazing things. I am so glad. I didn't know that story, and I am so glad that she fought for that, because of course, seeing a Black girl on that cover made that cover so dope for me. Especially the age that I was about like 13, 14 when that was coming out. So I was like middle school. And these kids, at least from the way they looked on the cover, were like high school. So this was like, they're cool. This is what I'm growing up to be. And
which wasn't really for teens. It was for young.
Yeah, it really was. It was like young adults. But that was like good enough. Like that was good enough, because pretty much everything else was squarely for adults that have jobs and can buy things and join covens and do all of this. And so this was written for somebody younger. And even though there were things I couldn't do yet, I was like, okay, well, you know, in a couple of years I'm going to be able to do this, or, you know, let me start fighting for this now. But absolutely, just that cover being diverse made a huge, huge difference for me.
I had a feeling you were, because we're about the same age, and you know, I had a feeling that you were a Silver Ravenwolf kid too, because that's our generation.
She's mother. She is mother.
I wanted to because I'm trying to tie this in, because you know, so you have this whole course that you do to help what you call baby witches, but I'm curious about your baby witch. Like how did you find witchcraft, and how did you go from you know, because we all start in that phase where it's sort of like a dabbling side thing before we get serious.
I will say also, because quite a few times they mention that I call them baby witches. And to be clear, I only refer to new witches or young witches as baby witches because that is what they call themselves. Being at HQ, I probably did not go a single day without someone calling themselves that. That is how new witches introduce themselves. I do not call people baby witches as some type of like judgment on them or some type of condescension of their skill level. I'm sitting at HQ and every single day someone comes in and is like, I don't really know what I'm looking for. I heard about this thing. I saw this thing on YouTube. I read this book. I'm a baby witch. I don't really know what I'm doing. Can you help? So I use the term baby witch because that's what folks who come to me call themselves. It's not a term that I came up with. And it's not even one that I give any thought to in terms of like, is it accurate or not? I use it because that's what new witches are calling themselves. And I want them to know that I help them. So I call them by the phrase or the term that they call themselves. And I don't see any reason to be to not want to call new witches baby witches. Like, what is so offensive about being called a baby? We all start somewhere and we were all babies. If you are brand new at something, if you have just stepped into something, you're a baby at it. I don't really see it as an offensive thing. And I wouldn't use it if so many people didn't call themselves that, but that's what they call themselves. So that's why I call them baby witches.
Yeah, so like
you were around 12 when you started to question the Bible. What age was it that, this?
Yeah, well, it was in that time frame because I self-dedicated to Wicca at the age of 14. And I'm pretty sure that I've probably used a self-dedication ritual in Teen Witch or in something like Buckland's Complete Book of Witchcraft, or maybe one of Cunningham's books. So it was definitely that type of material, and it took me a couple of years to find it. Like Teresa Reed was saying, the bookstore, and this is why these things get attacked. It was the bookstore, and it was charmed. So these depictions and this availability. I was the kid that sat. Now you have entire sections in your bookstores like mine, completely dedicated to it. But when I was that age, it was just like 2 shelves at Barnes Noble under the like Mind, Body, Soul title. Just next to like the Bibles and the other religious works, and there was just a short little thing. And I just read every single thing. I'd get out of school and I would go to Barnes & Noble on like 86 in Lexington, and I would sit on the floor because Barnes & Noble was cool enough to like just let you read back then. I don't know if they do that now, but you could just sit there and read books, and that's what I would do. And then pair that up with the changing images I was seeing in pop culture. That really kind of made me feel like, okay, like this is the me that I want to be, like when I get into high school. And so that's really what started it.
I want to jump in here and say I love that you talked about reading, because I'm all for a video essay on stuff and all of that, but I think it's super helpful to go to the source and read it yourself, because then you can compare and contrast with the YouTube video you're watching to see what new things you're getting from this video or what you disagree with. But doing your own homework is part of becoming a witch. It's not just listening to other people disseminate it for you. That's helpful. But doing your own research. Allie, I do want to wrap out because we're almost done with what answers or what things, as someone who is a practicing Wiccan and teaching other people, especially people of color, what are some words or catchphrases they can give to their families? What did you say to your family when you were like, I'm Wiccan? What are some things they can say to diffuse rather than inflame the situation, and yet they keep their boundaries firm?
Well, I think that's a great question. I think the first thing that I would say is that you have absolutely every right to just say nothing. Yeah. Because you owe no one any explanation about anything. You don't have to prove to anybody that you're a good person. You don't have to prove to anybody that you don't worship this or don't do that. And you certainly don't have to convince them to see things the way that you do. So people like to say that no is a complete sentence, but I like to also say so is silence. So is me saying absolutely nothing. Because
Damien Eccles was on the podcast and spoke about the same thing. Yeah. About how saying nothing, and as a loudmouth Scorpio, it took me till my age, honestly, till fairly the last 10 years to wrap my head around that. Like whatever witty barb I have, which is very clever because I am witty at times, doesn't matter because silence makes the other person have to reflect on what they said or done. Like, for example, if someone's being an asshole to you and oh, ew, is your shirt really old? You just say nothing at all.
Just let that hang in the air and just, does that feel good to you now? And enjoy that.
Or the other thing I like to do, not so much about religion, is, is that sort of thing important to you?
Yeah.
You know, just ask the question innocently. Like, if they're like, your sneakers are really old, not cool. Oh, is that sort of thing important to you?
I think that would be my second thing. So first, I would say silence is an option. No answer is an option, even if they're family members. And obviously, the younger you are, this might be a little harder to navigate. But if you're an adult, at least certainly, if you live on your own and you pay your own bills, for sure, it's like, I owe you absolutely nothing. So you could say nothing. But to your point, you could also follow up with a question. Which is sometimes really effective because, I've had like random family members send me, YouTube videos of people who claim that they were, witches for 2 years and now they've given their life to Christ or something and they've seen the errors of their ways. And I've had people literally just send me like videos like this and say nothing. And then my response is, why did you send me this? And I think I had a niece say, God just put it on my heart. And I said, well, did God tell you why he put it on your heart? I'd love to know. What was the follow-up? Did you not ask him any other questions about that?
See how going, why did you send that, you asshole? You know I just not doing that.
No.
That diminishes our power position.
Yeah, like you don't have control over my emotions. I'm not going to have an emotional response, but I am going to ask you some follow-up questions that maybe allow you to see that your motivation behind asking me this question or approaching me in this way might not be coming from the place that you would like to pretend it's coming
from. It's a much nicer way than saying, what motherfucking passive-aggressive question are you trying to do here?
Well, it's the same as...
Keep out this swearing, sorry, Matt.
It's the same as prayer. There are prayers that are straight up curses, and they come from that same place that you're talking about, of like it comes from a judgmental place and not a genuine caring place.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I get that a lot from
that facade.
Yeah, I get that a lot from folks that claim to be Christians in the comments. It's a lot of, I'm just here because I love you so much. And I'm just delivering this message from love. So folks like that, I think if you ask enough questions, you start to unravel that thing that they're trying to quilt for you. And then the third thing that I would say, so silence is one. The other is just questioning. It's sending questions back to them. And then the third, I think, is the approach that I would reserve for the family members that you love, that genuinely love you. This is usually like your parents and folks like that, your siblings and stuff like that. What I have learned as I've gotten older and a little bit wiser is that all of my mother's initial aversion, which, by the way, when I was 16, she wrestled a candle out of my hand and told me I was a devil worshiper. And today she wears BronxWitch t-shirts and tells people I'm a tarot reader. So you can turn them around. It just might take 20-something years. But what I realized as I got older and was less like just angry and more wise and empathetic and sympathetic to what parents are going through, even though I'm not one, is that ultimately her concern, her anger, her rejection was just based in fear. I just don't want my baby to be doing something that is going to harm her, that's going to send her down the wrong path, that's going to lead her into the grips of something she can't get out of. Yeah, it's just love. She just loves me and is fearful of my well-being, and all of this animosity, all this anger, all of this stuff that caused me to have to hide my altar under my bed and hide my witchy books behind my school books and all of that stuff just came from love and fear. And so for those people that you know love you and just are concerned about your well-being, I think what you can tell them is that it's to realize that your practice of the craft does not mean that you are out of alignment with God's love, that you love God and that God loves you, and that this is the path that you have chosen to express that and feel that the most. Those people who actually do love you and care about you perhaps are deserving of a more thoughtful answer, and that's where I would start. Because and certainly there are atheist witches, but for folks that practice the craft in the context of a spirituality where there's some concept of some all, some creator, some bigger force, what people are really worried about, the ones that love us, is that we are doing something that's going to push us away from God, from salvation, from miracles, that will get left behind. And so by letting them know that that's not the case, because my mom asked me one day, this was fairly recently, but she finally, I think, was probably wanting to ask me this for a long time, but she was like, I just have to ask you, do you believe in God? And like the fear in her voice, oh my God, please don't say no. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do if I think that I'm going to leave this life and you're going to be here and you're going to have a godless life. And, and I explained to her, Mommy, not only do I believe in God, but I know God. I don't do beliefs.
So it's also what I'm hearing here is being willing to have the conversation a little bit with people and not just get so freaked out that they're against me, because, it's easy to fall into our pain body. We're like, they don't understand me, especially when we're younger. No, when we're younger, like, we are nothing but anger when we're right?
Just a ball of emotions.
It's kind of normal to feel that, but what I love about what Ali said is, like, a little bit of it is leading with your empathy and compassion for this person. That helps me a lot in my daily life, especially when people are like, I think is an asshole or not doing what I want, whatever it is. I will go, oh, okay. Let me put myself in their space with my empathy or my intuition. And then I see that it is not that they want to annihilate me or whatever, because it goes from 0 to they're trying to make me go away. And we can be resolute in our faith, Wiccan, Christianity, whatever it is. And it shouldn't threaten us that other people have a different belief. That doesn't threaten me at all, that people believe something differently than I do.
Right.
It's just more fuel. All right, Matt, any last thoughts? Because we're wrapping it up.
Yeah, one of the things I found really helpful for this was when I was training with the Temple of Witchcraft. One of the ways Christopher teaches to approach this is to give them levels of truth. So you start with, I'm spiritual, and then I'm earth-based spirituality.
Thank you,
And
Takara.
then perhaps pagan.
I mean, ultimately, it's up to the person hearing it to decide if it's offensive to them, but I appreciate hearing someone who's newer on their journey to say it's not offensive.
And then it's sort of really
I wouldn't use the term if it was,
everyone's
they
face.
didn't use
I'm
it.
a Wiccan.
Right.
Done in that tone, which isn't very empathetic, actually, for the other people or yourself. So I love what Matt's saying. It's like baby steps.
It's funny too, because my partner at the time, we were doing that with his family to like get him like incremented, and I remember we were at dinner with his grandmother, and we got her acclimated to pagan, and like pagan was okay, and then we somehow mentioned like the Temple of Witchcraft, and she was like, witchcraft? I thought you were practicing the paganism.
Oh, grandma.
Like explain, but it helps them to know that you're not like jumping into like sacrificing goats and worshiping evil or an embodiment of evil. That
Even if you are.
Right. Yeah. that I like the levels, approach, and you can kind of decide based on how much that person cares about you and how much you care about them, of like how deeply you want to go into those levels. For me, it's a little bit different because my purpose in this lifetime is clear to me, and it's to make a world in which witches can be safe and be public and be themselves, and have people, whether they agree with them or not, at least understand them and not have such dramatic reactions. And so I have been led to call myself the Bronx Witch, to call myself BronxWitch HeadQuarters. I wear merch with witch on it all the time. I have, I make that really outward and open, because I am here to tackle that stigma around that word, and the lack of knowledge around that word. But not everybody has that purpose. And so you don't have to go right to the I'm a witch with everybody that you meet.
And you don't have to proselytize either,
Oh, yeah. It's very not witchy to proselytize.
All right. So listen, Allie, we're going to have all your socials and your store listed on the webpage
Thank you.
for this podcast. So everywhere, if you want to find Allie online, she's the Bronx Witch on her socials, and we'll have stuff listed. But you've been a fabulous guest, and I think you did such a terrific job at letting people understand that this is just another way, and it's another way. And if it resonates with you, great. And if it doesn't, no problem. I'm like down on hardcore Christianity today. Unlike Christianity, which is like, if you don't believe this, you're going to hell. That's really dramatic, you guys.
Yeah.
It's really manipulative, Jesus. Anyway, all right.
Well, I don't think that's Jesus is doing.
Yeah.
I think that's
We'll talk about that next. All right. Anyway.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me, you guys. And next time you're on the East Coast, please, you have to come by HQ. I would love to have you both. All of your books, Matt, and your amazing deck and book, Rachel, are on our bookshop storefront. So I'm constantly recommending all of the things that you guys have created to people. I genuinely really enjoy them and think they're super helpful to witches of all levels of experience. So thank you for having me.
Don't forget to check out Allie's classes. All right. Bye.
BronxWitch.com.
bye.
Blessed be.
I was happy they let me get the Blessed Be in there.
This show is part of the Modern Witch Podcast Network. For more
Night,
shows like it,
Takara.
visit www.modernwitch.com.
What do we think about the episode, witches? Those of you that are still here, still rocking with Vision Board time. What did we think? Did you enjoy that? Now you all have to go to the Modern Witch website and go rate the episode. Go listen to the episode because I gave you a cheat listen. So you have to go show the love over there. Okay? But thanks for hanging out and listening to it with me. I wanted to hear it, and it came out a few days ago and I haven't had time, so it was really good for me to get to hear it all over again and remember the conversation. I think it was a really great conversation. I've listened to like 5 or 6 episodes from the show, and I think this conversation was a little bit different. I don't think I'm the only person of color that they've had on the show, but Rachel in particular went right in with, these questions that are kind of like big questions to tackle, but I think are the types of questions that, make sense for a Black Wiccan witch to talk about. So I enjoyed talking about the topics, certainly in a friendly space. So I thought that was pretty cool, but what did you all think? Did we enjoy it? Could you hear it? Hopefully you could hear it. Someone on YouTube has said that it felt ASMR to listen to, which is nice. No thoughts? If you are just coming in the room or you weren't here in the beginning, I will let you all know that usually high tea is a lot more chatty. It's a Q&A, and we usually talk about a topic. And in past years, when I have done we always do vision boards for the October high tea. And I'm usually talking a lot more about what my vision board has, but also tips for how to make your own, recommendations I have for how to make the process go smoothly and how to make your vision board really effective. But I am simply not in the talking mood tonight. I am doing a lot of reflecting on the ways in which I have been giving of myself, perhaps excessively, and not taking a good enough assessment of whether or not the people and the groups that I am giving so much to are, one, valuing what I'm giving, and two, giving anything back. And I don't think that you necessarily have to get anything back when you give of yourself. But if you realize that you are not giving from an overflowing cup, then there's a problem. Ayanna Van Zandt, I've been quoting her a lot lately, which I don't even necessarily follow her or watch any of her things. It's just I think she makes a good meme. She says a lot of powerful things that are just one-liners, so they end up circulating online a lot, because sometimes I don't even know how I know that she has said these things. But I think she was talking to Oprah once in an interview, and she said that everything in your cup is for you, and the part that overflows is for everybody else. We talk about giving from an empty cup thing or whatever, but you shouldn't be giving of yourself unless your cup is overflowing. And you should be giving what's overflowing, not what's in your cup. And I think the only reason why I'm kind of bitter about people not reciprocating what I've been giving out is because my cup's not overflowing. And because I've been giving from inside the cup, I've been giving the energy that I need for myself. And that's on me. And I said at the beginning that I'm trying not to like take responsibility for everything and acknowledge when people are just being fucked up and taking advantage. But I do think that that's on me, that filling my cup is for me to do. It's not anyone else's responsibility to do that. It's for me to do. And if I were filling myself up to the point of overflow, then it would be no problem to give the excess to whoever needed it, regardless of whether or not they could give back. And so that means that really, you know, I'm frustrated that anyone would take advantage of me, but I get nowhere by focusing on that. I do, however, get somewhere by acknowledging that my cup not being full right now and my energy and resources being so depleted is ultimately a result of my decision to give of something that I don't have excess of. And that is something that I do, regardless of anyone taking advantage. I do have to take responsibility for that part. Oh, hold on. Did my camera go? Oh, did the phone die? Wait. Oh, the camera died. Would you look at that? Well, I was going to ask you guys if I should put something else on to continue, but I think that is the sign. Obviously, I still have more to do in my vision boarding here, but you guys got to see how it started, and I'm sure I will make some posts on YouTube and Instagram when I'm all done, and I will certainly make a post in the coven for the Coven Witches when I am all done. So I'm going to keep working on this. I'm going to let you witches go off into the rest of the night. November high tea. Stay tuned for updates. It'll happen. I'm just not sure in what capacity, because I got to spend some time figuring out how I fill up my cup. And that might mean some changes. So stay tuned. Okay. But there will be a high tea in November, I imagine. Thanks for hanging out tonight. If I don't come live on these platforms, Happy New Year to everyone who celebrates Samhain. Have a beautiful and blessed shift of the seasons. And I will see you all sometime soon. Blessed be. Bye.